project development point of view, are there regulations, policies that can be more supportive?
Oh, now that we have the FERC permit, they can tighten it up. Without some of the competitors, so that not every day you wake up and realize there is another project. Yeah, I know. It's an area I'm not familiar with. I think it's, clearly for people who don't have the FERC permit, they would rather, the process being shortened. But I mean, FERC also has a lot of responsibility to the stakeholders, right? They want to make sure, and they get protests, and and they get questioned on the decisions they already made, right? I think recent times there are a couple of news coming out with the decisions that FERC already made. These projects already have permits, but they're now they're getting questioned whether all the studies were done. There's whether the environmental assessment was accurate, and they constantly get questioned. So I mean, it's not an easy job. So I don't have a view of what regulatory body needs to do. I'm sure it's not easy in their shoes either.
You're the last word.
Okay, for better or worse, I have a fair amount of government and regulatory background in my career as well. Look, there's no getting around this. This is as much of a political process as it is a regulatory process. So I think you do have to be really on your game in this field. You have to have the right people in Washington, D.C., the right people, in our case, in Baton Rouge, that kind of thing, to make sure that things are tended to all the time, and that, it's not just making filings, it's strategy. Where are we going to go next? Are we going to have an open house over here? Is there some way around that? You've mentioned the permitting issue. I do worry a little bit about pipelines, linear facilities. I think they are unnecessarily at risk in this country. I don't know. I can't think of an industry that probably is more efficient, safer than the pipeline and midstream industry, and yet they're being picked on horribly. So I think that just the very last thing would be, I don't think it's so much about regulatory as it is, and Amy mentioned it a minute ago, it's about NGOs and that type of risk and threat that sort of hangs over your head after a while. It's like a lot of things in development. The vast majority of it you don't control. You're playing defense, you're tactical all the time. You've got plan A, B, C, and D, and you've got to think like that all the time. So it makes it fun, but it also gives you a hole in your stomach occasionally too. So.